Welcome to the Fantasy Formula 1 podcast, where we use fake money to buy real F1 teams to win imaginary points.
That's right.
That wasn't as clean as it has been in weeks past.
No, it's okay. It's all right. We're getting there. It's a process.
I'm Paul. That's Ben. And we are here to discuss everything that went on in the Belgian Grand Prix.
And everything did go on.
Everything did. If you are like me, you hawk the little app to see how many points you got once they announced the provisional points. And I was super stoked because my George Russell and Lewis Hamilton.
Oh, yeah. No, for a moment, we were brilliant.
Yeah.
We've been telling you, Mercedes is the real deal. We doubled down on both of them wherever we could afford to do so. And for about 8 minutes, that was the right move.
Man, I was so stoked. And before I tell you where I really am, my one team was in the top 10,000 of the world.
Oh,
down
wow.
to 4 digits.
Nice.
I was so stoked. And then you texted me and you're like, what went on with Russell? And I was at the time, because I had sketchy.
Yeah, you're like, connection. I don't know what
I was
went
like,
on with Russell.
What happened with Russell? Last I checked, he was a wizard.
Yeah.
And then I realized that he was disqualified.
What was it? The Tire Wizard? Is that what?
The Tire Wizard?
Total
the Tire
call
Whisperer.
Yeah,
the Tire Whisperer. Yeah. He was disqualified over 1.5 kilos, which for all you Americans out there, 1 kilo is 2.2 kilograms, 2.2 pounds.
Yes.
So about 3 pounds is what he got disqualified. I need to read I haven't read all the news articles yet. But.
Okay, so I need you to walk me through this. I'm playing the new guy card here. Okay. So I know that the FIA committee weighs each vehicle before the race. So it passed their inspection.
It did.
And so. But I also know the issue was there was a certain amount of fuel or oil or some kind of fluid that the car requires for various parts of its components that was then depleted. So was it weighed again after the race?
Yes. So the top 3 get weighed again.
Okay.
At least as far as I know, the top 3 for sure get weighed again, and everybody else is kind of random. Or maybe it's just the winner gets weighed again. However, so there is a bunch of checks and balances of weight versus not weight, and when all the different things happen.
Sure.
And there's everything. There's a paperwork trail that says how it went on, and as soon as you drive that long, they know how much fuel you should deplete. So for anybody who is more familiar with IndyCar than Formula One, a long time ago, Formula One removed the variable of fuel from Formula One racing.
Okay.
So it used to be you could refuel during a race. So you could start with much less fuel, plan for how long you needed, just top yourself off, and so you never needed to run with a full fuel tank. You could just play the game, and as long as you didn't run out of fuel, you were fine. That's the way it works now in IndyCar and in NASCAR here in the United States.
Okay.
You'll see the NASCAR come in, get the tires, do a quick top off of fuel and run.
Yeah.
And fuel's going everywhere, and sometimes it catches fire. But right now in NASCAR, they'll fuel it, it'll go, and then they spray it all down with a hose to deplete the fuel so it doesn't catch fire.
Sure.
Well, that's not the way Formula One does. Now Formula One says you cannot refuel during the race. Full stop. So everybody runs with a heavier fuel load at the start of the race.
Sure.
Less fuel load, and you need to map it out for however much fuel you're going to, you need to basically project your burn rate to make sure you don't run out of gas before the end of the race.
See, here's the thing I have a hard time with, though, is that to me says that this failure was the FIA's, because if they are going to institute that level of specificity for weight management, then they should have a gauge of, okay, did we check all of the weight variables that will change throughout the race in order to say your car is in fact good to go prior to the race.
And to the best, I completely agree.
Yeah.
And to the best of my knowledge, what happened is, so there is a time delta between when you get weighed and when the race starts. And I don't know quite, and we'd have to get somebody, or have to do more research about, all the proper procedures, but the way I had it, the way it went down was the cars are not supposed to be under, it cannot be under, just a car sitting by itself cannot be under a certain weight. It's like 390 something kilograms, right?
Okay, sure.
And they basically extrapolated it out, or they looked back at the paperwork and saw that he was 1.5 kilograms light before the race started. After they weighed him, something went on with the car. And whether it was they weighed him, they defueled and refueled, but didn't go all the way. I think, if I remember, I read some articles, not many, but somebody touched the fuel and they realized that there was that delta, but they realized it when they were going through the paperwork after, and when they weighed him, they did the math,
Right.
they did the fuel, and they realized there was an issue.
The problem I see with that, though, is so many more things than what should happen do happen in any given race. So say he's got a full tank when they weigh him, and they go, okay, well, he should go through 80% of his fuel. Say he gets tapped by someone else during the race, which again always happens. There's a small puncture in the fuel tank. All of a sudden, he's used more fuel than they extrapolate that he should have used, and now now he's underweight. I think that's a massive either that's a massive methodology problem, or you're weighing these cars and then leaving enough access to them after their evaluation where someone could remove a little bit of fuel, if in fact they had dastardly
if that happened,
right? So either way, there's a flaw in the system that Russell ended up having to pay for, which I think is pretty jacked up because, this leads to another philosophical question. He clearly won the race on merit.
Yes.
The dude drove and won that race. And we're talking about a 3 pound at most.
Yes. Let's call it 3 pounds.
3 pound difference.
Yeah.
You're George Russell. Do you want to move forward with having been disqualified knowing you won the race? Or would you rather have the win with the asterisk that, the FIA will accept fault, but however, your car was underweight. We're going to give you the win, but there's going to be the star next to this Grand Prix win.
If I am George Russell, I want the star next to the Grand Prix win. I want the asterisk because he's still getting the points towards the championship.
Yeah.
If they give him the win, he's still getting the points. Jason, is still getting the fantasy points.
Sure.
But yeah, if you're him, you want it to keep going. You want the points. You want to keep progressing. I would much rather have that asterisk saying, "Hey, you were 1.5 pounds underweight. You're 3 pounds underweight." And the reason being is we kind of a little bit mentioned it. If you're really going to go to George Russell and say, "You know what? You don't get your victory because your car is 3 pounds underweight."
Yeah.
Well, let's stand George Russell and pick your driver who weighs 3 pounds less than George Russell.
Well, and that's exactly it too. 3 pounds is not a lot. I do realize with these platforms, with these cars, you're pushing for every 10th, 100th, 1,000th of whatever unit of measurement you're trying to increase your efficiency by. So 3 pounds does matter, but I mean, look at the variability in the size of the drivers. I mean, all of them are slight young men in fantastic shape. However, look, you got Yuki Tsunoda, who's several inches shorter than everybody else. He's a meme every day of the week on all the socials because of his height. I mean, that alone, are we going to get into like horse racing jockey territory where you get the tiniest guys you can, and that's going to be more important than other skill variables?
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to truly even things out, you're going to have to put Yuki Tsunoda in a fat suit every week to make sure everything is the same weight. And I would pay money to see that. That'd
absolutely,
be hilarious.
that would be hilarious.
Yeah.
He should do that just like a political statement. Just be like, "Hey guys, okay, I want to weigh as much as George Russell," and just have him walk around. I think that'd be funny.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so. And it gets down to a technical thing, like, and Mercedes didn't fight it. So on the question, because this is a question we have to ask.
Yeah.
Did Mercedes or George Russell knowingly cheat?
No, I think there's no way George Russell could have knowingly cheated. The difference is going to be so small that it's not something he would have noticed in driving.
I completely agree.
And his performance was stellar.
And Mercedes didn't cheat. George Russell didn't cheat. They did it, and it was defueled. And my guess is that they will, after they do the weigh-in, there's fueling and defueling. People touch the car. They call it parc ferme. I know I'm mispronouncing it. You guys can feel free to correct me. Parc ferme, something like that.
Okay.
And it's where you can't touch the cars.
Sure.
In between things, like after qualifying before the race, you're in parc ferme. You can't touch the cars.
And that makes sense to me.
But whatever happened must have been before.
But yeah, so this to me sounds like an FIA failure.
I would agree. How come they're allowed to, and to that point, how come they're allowed to allow this failure to take place and then discover it after?
Right.
And they hold the team accountable, which I understand in the end it's on the team.
Sure.
But the fact that there weren't enough checks and balances in place.
Yeah, you told me it was okay to drive.
Yeah.
So I drove.
You told me it was okay to drive, and you didn't tell me it was illegal to touch the fuel.
Right.
Because as soon as there's a paperwork trail of removing or touching the fuel after you're no longer allowed to touch the fuel, that's an issue.
Yeah.
And why not, as soon as you want to have some more fun before, when all the cars are about to go out and do their park lap, instead of having all the cars come out of the pits, do their lap and form up on the grid, have them all get into a line and just go through all the scales. And so you have their exact, I don't know. I'm showing how little I know about the sport by saying, why don't you just fix it? But you and I, having both spent a long time working for the federal government, we're like, wait a minute. As soon as there's something that's so as soon as there's something that's so obvious of wait a minute, what happened? Why don't you change the way you run the system to prevent this from happening?
Oh, exactly. If you ever spent time as a commo, doing any kind of chain of custody of secure documents or materials. And all of the, you have to sign this out. You need 2% integrity for this.
Yep.
We got to make sure that this is locked before we open this door, and given how much is at stake on any given week during a Formula One race, how is this process not locked down? How is it not the FIA who has said, your car is okay, get away from it, we'll see it at race time? And
unless it was illegal for them to touch it, which it wasn't.
Right.
That's Anyway, so and here's a little bit more proof as to why I know it wasn't anything dubious. It wasn't Mercedes trying to sneak around. I did see I spoke with my father, who's really big into Formula One as well.
Oh, cool.
And he was talking about some of the talking heads he listens to, and I forget who it was. I'd really love to give them the appropriate citation. So if you hear this and you know who said this, then cool. Is that as soon as they had because I guess Mercedes didn't take the cool down lap.
Okay.
They won. Congratulations. They ducked into the pits. Again, nothing says you need to take a victory lap. They just didn't. And as soon as they had taken a victory lap, as soon as they had those really hot tires and driven off the race line and gathered up rocks and dust and debris and whatever, when they went onto the scale, they probably could have picked up, 3 pounds of just nastiness and debris on their tires.
Oh, I gotcha.
And fooled the scales, which to me, as soon as it's in the zeitgeist, as soon as it's in the regular conversation, that this option they should have done, no one's saying they should have cheated.
Sure.
But as soon as it's that readily available that maybe could have fooled the system, it to me solidifies that they're not trying to fool the system. They literally we won. Great. Let's go weigh our car as we standard do.
Right. Well, and so that's the thing. You shouldn't have to overthink to that granular degree. It's funny. My wife and I were watching the Olympic highlights yesterday, and there are certain sports that are just easily thrilling. There are other ones that are more nuanced, and we're like, let's take a look at some of those.
Yeah.
And some of these sports have gotten to such a technical level that we were completely scratching our heads in confusion at the methodologies and the strategies being employed, and a lot of these were in the combat sports, like
fencing or jiu-jitsu or something.
Fencing and judo in particular.
Okay,
you have these two ladies in fighting each other in judo, and they're all going for grabs of each other's coats, because that's where you can exploit the most.
Okay,
but it would be like one tosses the other to the ground, and then they just kind of stay there, and they're not going for anything. They're not out for blood. They're not trying to actually beat each other up. They're just going for pure strategy.
Interesting.
But it made the whole thing so unspectator friendly, because you're like, well, why is she not just sweeping the leg, Johnny? And then they would just wait for the ref to kind of go, okay, and he'd do a weird hand motion that I have no context for what it means, because the sport has become so distilled into strategy to win.
Yeah.
And they're not fighting each other.
Gotcha. That's interesting.
And then on a parallel note, you look at fencing, and we watched China versus Japan.
Okay.
And these guys are intense and they're going for it, but you're no longer fighting with swords. You have car antennas that are really, really wiggly and wobbly, and you're basically just fly swatting each, trying to be the first one to fly swat the other with the tip of your car antenna.
Yeah.
And it's like, there comes a point where the enjoyment is gone. There comes a point where the rawness is gone. And so if it's you won the race, but you better do some laps so you can pick up some dirt and grime just to ensure that you hit the weigh-ins, and that becomes so much.
That's a good point.
When you get to that point of of we have to exploit every possible detail for every possible contingency, you lose that fundamental, we're just trying to drive fast and beat the other guy.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's a good point.
And I mean, I don't want it to get to that point.
And when I talk to my brothers who are big into like IndyCar and NASCAR, they would argue, like my brother Sean, we've talked about this. He brought up the question if Formula One's already there. Because as soon as, first off, you can't get into Formula One. There can't be new race teams. And we can talk about Formula One versus IndyCar. Like
barrier of entry and all that.
Barrier of entry and all that.
Sure.
But like, as soon as you're in a F1 car and you are 0.4 of a second over an entire race, you lose by 0.4 of a second. If the entire top 10, the first half of the field, after an entire race is within 1 second apart, now you have great drivers who, because they're 0.2 of a second off of the entire pace, will never race in Formula One.
Sure.
You have people like Nick DeVries, which, congratulations, he won Le Mans.
Yeah.
He was on the winning team at Le Mans and this year, and he was not good enough for Formula One.
His entire Formula One career was 10 races.
Was 10 races because he was 1 second off of after an entire race, he was a second or two off, which to us, it's like, come on, whatever. But are we really truly watching Formula One, or are we watching airplanes on the track and they're no longer looking for the rough, the gritty, the person to do whatever. They're looking for the scientific, I can squeeze the extra 1/10 out of everything.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of validity to that. However, I also think that ultra precision mixed with the any given Sunday is so much of the allure. Again, as the guy walking in completely cold, and this is my first time going through a full season.
Yeah.
This time last year I knew nothing about Formula One, and I think that is the point of fascination for me. It's like, oh, you've got NASA rocket scientists and all of their calculations and all of their wind tunnel math and crazy montages of science happening, and and someone's probably swirling a beaker of a mystery fluid somewhere.
Right.
But then it comes down to, oh crap, it rained today.
Yeah.
And we didn't, and the angle of this fin on the left-hand side of the front of the car isn't ideal for rain. And and maybe that one little moment of driver instinct will matter in overcoming that inefficiency.
Yeah.
But then maybe the driver on the guy at P16, the driver of the car at P16 just went through a rough breakup and is driving angry and somehow has a little bit of edge to him.
Yeah.
There is still I think to me there is enough of that human factor still.
Okay.
But again, paired with the rocket science-ness of it all.
Yeah.
I certainly think the argument is to be made, because we do measure victory and utter failure in hundredths of seconds. So yes, that element is that criticism is alive and well, and I can't fight that.
But also, we are sitting here talking about fantasy Formula One, not fantasy IndyCar.
Sure.
Yeah. So there's got to be some difference. And I've watched IndyCar. Like, I enjoy IndyCar.
Yeah.
But Formula One is where I'm like, oh, let's watch Formula One today.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So,
and then I think there's extremes in any sport. You've got like again the ultra refined combat stuff, and then you've got the bum fights VHS movies, where it's just like no training whatsoever.
I'm going to hold off.
Yeah.
We never started recording.
Are you serious?
Yeah. No, I started recording audio. I never started recording cameras.
Oh, man, that was so good.
Oh, good God. Okay. You know what we're going to do? We're not even. We're just going to keep running, going. Hi, everybody.
You know what we can do is we can assign freeze frames to that audio so you have something to see.
Yeah,
but
oh my gosh, oh my gosh, this is what happens when you have an independent podcast. Everybody, you get raw realism this way.
Wait, and so this is your cue to focus your podcast on your commute rather than at the computer.
Yes, exactly.
Go out, mow the lawn, keep listening to us. You don't need to see anything anyway. You're fine.
Oh gosh, I'll see if I can put a timer in there. Be like, video will resume, and just have it count down to when we actually realize I didn't turn on the cameras.
That's good.
That's
gosh.
Perfect. No. Okay, we're just gonna keep it going. We're keeping it going.
All right.
So Russell did not cheat. Mercedes made a mistake and got it.
Yep.
All right. So because of that,
bad day for him.
But man.
But again, I think everyone knows it. It's just things didn't turn out his way. Mercedes still won, but points wise, both real F1 and fantasy, man, that 8-minute turnaround sure sucked.
That was rough.
Yeah,
that was rough.
I went from high because I went heavy Mercedes on all three of my teams.
Yeah.
And I was high like 180, 190 across all three teams, and now they've dropped to, I think my best team got 150 points, my worst team got 85. So that wasn't my favorite week.
No, I went from being, let me see here, it was this team, it was one of them, but yeah, both teams down to about 150. So, and with Russell, yeah, he went from having like positive 50 something points, I want to say it was,
yeah, to
having negative 21. So it was like a 70-point swing.
Yep, and and
then
of course
Mercedes,
that's your constructor as well. So you went from 50. It was close to 70 points for a constructor, and they dropped down to 25.
That's rough. That's rough.
Yeah.
All right. So and then
and then the other killer here this week is if you've been listening and following our strategic way forward, you've been going heavy Mercedes and heavy McLaren, which is smart but expensive. So that means you have to scrape the bottom of the barrel from a financial perspective for your remaining drivers, and that did hurt this week because Zogan, you got a DNF, right?
You got DNF early on for like a hydraulic leak or for a water leak.
That wasn't great.
No, and so I ended up taking and also you get negative 25 points for disqualification, not just negative 20.
Oh no!
Yeah, so
I
we
did
got
not
double
know that.
schwacked. As soon as if you have a driver and the constructor, and one of your guys gets disqualified, it's negative 50
negative 50 points right there.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yep.
So that was really rough. So the next person I want to talk about, let me go to this other. Where are we at? So I want to talk about Max Verstappen. Let's go to.
Let's do it.
Race results. Let me duplicate the
tab. He ultimately got fourth place.
And we're gonna, and just to kind of outline it, I know if you're still listening to this, thank you for still listening this far. But we're talking about the race right now, and then we're going to be discussing all the numbers and stuff with in the future.
Yeah, we got a couple weeks here during the break. We'll talk specific stats. We'll talk what kind of things that we use as indicators for our upcoming strategy. But we'll get down to the nitty gritty of this week's race as well in the coming days.
Yeah. And where it is? How do I? Okay, I used to know. There we go. That was the number I was looking for. Want to get to? We'll go for results, and we're gonna swing on down to.
For those of you who are audio only right now, we're navigating the
F1 website. Sorry. Yeah, I need to. I don't want to enter now. I do want to share to win, but I will not enter now. Okay. So race results in Belgium. Now, and this George Russell Mercedes 0.0. Okay, so it is showing his disqualification. All right.
Yep.
So if we're going to look at the starting grid in Belgium, you had Max Verstappen starting at P11. All right. Now, he started at P11 because he replaced some sort of car components, and I'm not going to pretend to know exactly which ones he replaced, but it incurred him a 10-place grid penalty.
Yeah, because he qualified first.
He qualified first. Now, this is a prime example of I'm not going to lie, I did with one of my teams, went limitless this week.
Okay.
To get Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez on there because they both qualified so well. And I'm like, all right, so we're going to have, for those of you who didn't watch, Sergio Perez qualified P2.
P3.
Yeah, P3.
Yeah.
Max Verstappen qualified P1. And with all the talk with the kind of race it was, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and go limitless on one of my teams. I'm going to get Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez and Red Bull in there. Because Max Verstappen, I know he's going to take a 10-place grid penalty. He can pass everybody.
Exactly.
So if this is the Max Verstappen of old, he's going to qualify great, get those good points for qualifying.
And if it's the Sergio Perez of old, he will stay at P3.
He will stay at P3. Assuming he qualifies well, he's going to stay up there. So he'll stay at P3. Max will go and catch up to him.
Yep.
We'll have Max with all the points because every position higher you finish, you get 1 point. Every time you pass somebody, you get a point. Sergio Perez can just, if he qualifies well, hopefully should just finish well.
Mm-hmm.
And this will be a strong week for Red Bull. And it was on one of my teams that isn't doing so hot.
Sure. Yeah,
so I was like,
take the risk.
We're going to take the risk and we're going to see how this goes.
And you were half right.
I was half right. So Max Verstappen, and Yuki Tsunoda had a 60 place grid penalty for all the parts he changed on his car.
Oh my gosh.
So lucky for him, you just started the back of the pack at that point.
I was going to say, like, see, another thing I don't like about the FIA, like why give him multiple life sentences? Like, there comes a point where if you max out your penalty, you may as well keep changing up your car.
Yeah,
Throw some new stickers on there, put some streamers on.
Right. Right. You they just want to hand him a piece of paper that gives them, the the 3 consecutive life sentences.
Yeah, it's like if I'm already P20, I don't care, dude. Keep giving me the
and in the driver's defense and the team's defense, they do take that into account, and they're just like, all right, we're just not going to worry about it. We're just going to change a whole bunch of stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, so all that happened. Max Verstappen started P11, and Perez qualified P2, and Charles Leclerc started on the pole.
Yes.
Things we're going to look at. So for race results, we're going to come here. George Russell, okay, disqualified. That's he had a great come up. Where did George Russell start? George Russell started P6. So starting grid P6, and he made it all the way to the top. So that would have been super sick points wise, as we've already discussed.
It was for a minute.
Lewis Hamilton, again, great. Oscar Piastri, super cool. Charles Leclerc dropped off 3 spots. And Sergio Perez dropped off another 3 spots.
Yes, he did.
So what this is telling me is that George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Oscar Piastri, and Max Verstappen, really wherever they start, as long as they start in the top 10 or just out of the top 10, they're going to make their way back up, at least at this track.
Sure.
Right? I understand if it's some of those tracks that, have really tight and it's really hard to pass, but that wasn't this. So Max Verstappen gets up to P4. But Sergio Perez dropped back down to P7.
Oh, man.
And it wasn't due to strategy. From what I remember from watching the race, it was just he got past. Lewis Hamilton eked his way up. Everybody else eked their way up and just passed him. And this leads to the whole, I know I'm going to get some flack for this, but Red Bull Racing isn't the dominant car anymore.
Well, and so here's the thing. You've got McLaren, a contender. You've got Ferrari, I would still say a contender.
Yeah.
You've got Mercedes fully back in that mix. And then you've got Red Bull. I mean, that's P1 through P8 right there.
Done.
So Perez, at a minimum, needs to be P8. And, anything else is a dramatic failure, but he's being passed by what I would call his peers.
That's true. That's true.
You're in one of the higher performing cars, and you're dropping throughout from start to finish.
Yeah.
So I would still say he's underperforming within that top tier pack.
I agree. Or at least he's not performing well enough to keep him on your fantasy team.
Well, and that's exactly the thing. It's always the liability of where will he qualify? Oh my gosh, you made it to Q3, but now look at this. He didn't hang on to that advantage that he finally gained for himself.
And that's why if you do keep your nose, for all you out there in TV land, if you do keep your nose to the ground on social medias, there was huge talk about him getting replaced by
Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah. And not going to lie, I thought I was on the cusp of stuff, and I did see some stuff start circulating about him having talked with Christian Horner.
Yeah.
And him looking pretty happy about it all.
But to be fair, he generally looks like
that's one of the reasons I love the guy, right? Like, he genuinely looks happy. And I was talking to some of my friends who are still in the military and still abroad, talking about Daniel Ricciardo. I'm like, man, I bet if he swaps out for Sergio Perez, his price is going to go up, and we can go ahead and get Daniel. So I went ahead for 2 of my teams, did a swap to get Daniel Ricciardo to replace. Wow. One of them replaced Yuki Tsunoda, and the other replaced one of the Haas drivers, just to get Daniel Ricciardo in. Turns out that wasn't the way it worked.
No,
but I have Danny Rick on my team now, so I'm pretty happy with that. We'll see how it all progresses.
So total speculation mode. I think Perez is Red Bull through at least 20 the remainder of 24. Do you think he's Red Bull for 25?
And I honestly think he has to. I'm going to go and put on my pro Sergio Perez hat. There doesn't seem to be enough of that out in the world.
Okay,
so I'm going to go and put on my pro Sergio Perez hat. I think he is Red Bull for 2025, and the reason being is who's going to do better. And the issue is that if the car, like Max Verstappen, isn't even winning anymore. So it's a car issue. It has to be a car issue. And the issue isn't that the car sucks. The issue is that all the other cars learned what Red Bull did the last 2 seasons and caught up, and everybody's getting faster. Red Bull just isn't being as fast. So if you and I sitting here being talking heads on the other side of the world from where FIA headquarters is, if we can see this and say, you know what, the world knows that Red Bull just isn't as fast. And the reason why Max Verstappen is doing this great is because he's still the once-in-a-generation driver talent.
Of course.
Everyone acknowledges this. This isn't my words. As soon as Max Verstappen could use his once-in-a-generation driver talent and get up from P11 to P4, and Sergio Perez, who is really a very strong driver, earned all of the accolades and stuff he's ever done, he's getting passed by faster cars. Red Bull shouldn't get rid of him. He's still the good driver to have.
Gotcha.
They need to fix their car. Or, yes, there is a nice and drama and juicy to be like, well, we should get a driver in there who can make the car work better for them, who can squeeze those extra tenths out. You have Max Verstappen, and he can't do it.
Right.
So what are you really trying to expect from Sergio Perez?
I think my issue with Perez remains, he struggles with qualifying.
Yeah.
But the redeeming factor had been, if he qualifies well, he will at least maintain.
Yeah.
And we are not, and so we've had several poor qualifyings for him, so that hasn't given him much of a chance to shine. 2 weeks ago he did crawl all the way back from P16 to P7. Good for him, but here he had his good qualifying, and he kind of
didn't work out.
Squandered that,
Yeah.
So that's where I still have doubts about him moving forward. Again, do I think he still belongs in Formula One? Absolutely. I think maybe he could take the other Audi spot or the other Alpine spot.
So who replaces him? Who replaces Sergio Perez in 2025? I know who I think.
But here's the thing. I'm starting to feel a little bad for Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah. Okay, great. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah.
I think the popular answer will be Daniel Ricciardo, because that has been like the intended heir apparent for a while, but I don't think he's done enough, especially relative to his teammate there. I know Yuki's re-signed for 25 and...
Oh, did he?
Okay. He did that a couple months ago.
Yeah, you're right. He did. Yeah.
But I think at this point, purely on merit, I would prefer to see Yuki Tsunoda in a Red Bull car.
Mm-hmm. I think we've seen what Daniel Ricciardo does in a Red Bull car.
Yeah.
We look back. I mean, he was teammates with Max Verstappen already. He's been there, done that. And don't get me wrong, as soon as Danny Rick is I love him, as soon as he's doing great things, then put him in a Red Bull. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
But if we're looking for somebody on the team who on the two V-Carb and Red Bull, who's put up his numbers, who deserves a shot, I really think it's Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah, and one of them has to leave, because I think 2025 is the year of Liam Lawson for Baby RB.
Completely agree. And as soon as you don't put up Liam Lawson, then you're going to have like an Oscar Piastri issue where he left whichever team he was it Williams?
Oh, I don't know.
He was, and we have to look back and check. You guys can know. Feel free to like and subscribe and ask us and correct me on this. He came up with, it was either, I want to say it was Williams or Alpine. Mm-hmm. He came up with on Williams or Alpine through Formula 3, Formula 2. And when he was going to Formula 1, he was like, nope, I'm jumping to McLaren. Went to McLaren, and now he's winning Grand Prix.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So, I don't know. I think with Liam Lawson, you should put him in at least a V-Carb next year. Don't put him in a Red Bull. You have Yuki Tsunoda.
Oh, for sure.
Don't leapfrog Yuki Tsunoda.
And I did see a kind of speculative piece on the F1 website a couple months back where they have been asking him the question is, if you don't get that V-Carb spot, are you looking elsewhere? And he's like, no, I am currently looking wherever there's an opening. Which why wouldn't you?
You need to. Yeah, because loyalty is not what it used to be in this business.
Oh, not at all. Yeah, half the drivers on the grid have been on 3 or more teams.
Yeah,
Hulkenberg's been around. Ricciardo's been everywhere. Sainz was Red Bull before, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and then he was Ferrari. Now he's gonna be. We haven't even talked about Sainz and Williams.
We need to talk about.
We'll get to that in a second. Yeah. But again, it's if you're good enough. This sport is a merry-go-round. It's musical chairs.
Everybody wants it.
Yeah, absolutely. Bottas has been he was Mercedes before.
Yeah.
So
and I was watching some of the old replays and some of the old analysis and stuff, and you're like, oh, and here goes Bottas driving or whatever, and you're like, Bottas was teammates with Lewis Hamilton
for years. Yeah.
What the heck, dude? What happened? Not what happened to him, but just he's doing well. And so as soon as you're like, oh, or me, I won't put this on anybody else. But if you're like, oh, I wonder where people are going to go.
Yeah.
To what we're talking about. Well, Danny Rick's already been there.
Okay.
Other drivers have already been there. So are they really going to go back?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, the Valtteri parallel right there, I think is a great transitional topic. A topic transition for us because Let's talk about Carlos Sainz. So he's been shopping for the entire season so far, and there's been so much speculation. And then slowly teams have closed the door. It's Aston Martin wasn't an option because Alonso's going to stay there for the foreseeable couple of years.
Yeah.
So my first question to you, Paul, because this has been your world for a while, is: did Sainz choose Williams, or did he run out of choices?
Only Sainz and his manager truly know.
Yeah.
If that's true, like which one it is. I think Sainz chose Williams.
Okay. Why is that?
I think for a couple of reasons, as soon as you're starting with Ferrari, then I think, of course, anybody in their right mind would try and go to Red Bull or McLaren.
Of course.
First off, Max Verstappen isn't going anywhere. So does he want to, assuming he ever wanted to, would he want to play second fiddle to Max Verstappen for the rest of his career? He's not, as long as Max Verstappen's on the team, Max Verstappen's going to be the one winning the championships. I don't see any other driver getting on Red Bull and suddenly having all the love, all the press, all the everything. He would be the number 2 driver.
Yeah.
So, and Red Bull wasn't, as far as I know, has never been like, yeah, we're entertaining Carlos Sainz.
Sure.
So then McLaren has their 2 drivers.
Yeah,
and so they're not going anywhere.
And the Norris-Piastri connection is pretty solid right
exactly.
now. You don't want to mess with
they're
that.
vibing, and then they're on the go, so yeah, they're not doing that. So then you're at Mercedes, then you're down to Mercedes, and it's obvious, again, that George Russell is going to be their number 1 driver.
Yeah.
And it's smart for Mercedes to be bringing up somebody from the juniors to get him in there right now, to benefit from George Russell, to have a team that still has Lewis Hamilton's vibe in it.
Yeah, and Russell's still youngish, and relative to a Formula One driver's typical age. And is it Antonelli, that 17-year-old?
Yeah.
Kid? Okay.
Yeah. So, and there's plenty of other good drivers to get into a Mercedes spot, because as soon as you're losing Lewis Hamilton, it's like a commanding officer changing the military, right? If for some reason you're losing your whole front office, well, then it's a huge regime change. And as soon as you're getting rid of this 7-time world champion from this team, and you're bringing up the George Russell who's on the go, you don't want anybody who's going to be pulling limelight from him. He's your primary. You want somebody to learn from them, so that in 5 seasons,
there needs to be a culture shift.
There needs to be that culture. Yeah,
I'm with you.
So at least that's my personal view.
No, that tracks.
Mercedes probably wasn't really an option for him. So now as soon as you're looking at that, then it's like, all right, well,
you've got Audi, Williams,
and you don't want Audi, because then he plays second fiddle to
Hulkenberg.
Sorry, to Hulkenberg. So you want Audi, you can have Audi.
Well, I mean,
so
I think they did pursue him, and he turned them down.
Okay,
it was one of those. I never saw an official thing, but there were a lot of breaking Instagram posts, which is a lot of BS, by the way. That's so super frustrating. Where they're like breaking, but not really
breaking. But we just
thank you for viewing the post.
And there's some F1 places I'm thinking about unsubscribing to, because it's like breaking. This guy might go to here. Yeah. Well, yeah, no kidding, dude.
Come on, guys.
Anyway,
so
for Audi, I mix them up in my head for a second. It was Audi. Aston Martin was turning to Audi, but it's not. It's
Kick Sauber.
Kick Sauber's turning to Audi. So as soon as they're already getting, they already announced the which one of the Haas drivers are going to Audi?
Which one of the Haas?
Which one? Yeah, going.
Hulkenberg.
Hulkenberg.
Yep.
Then what's your relationship like with Hulkenberg? And odds are Hulkenberg's getting a pretty cherry gig, to go over there. And so do you really want to go to Kick Sauber and go to Audi and have it kind of be a whole new team? I don't know.
Right.
Or would you want to go to a team where maybe you have a friend who's still racing?
That's true. He's pretty tight with
Alex Albon. So you're going to go, your boy Alex Albon's still over there. The Williams is trying to change around some stuff. Are you going to be the lead? Well, my guess is as soon as he shows up on Williams, it's going to be kind of peer-to-peer with Alex Albon, maybe even a little bit senior.
And that was my next question is, say you're Alex Albon and you find out Sainz has been signed to Williams as your other driver. How do you feel? Because, I mean, Albon has been the belle of the ball at Williams, like unequivocally. It's oh no, Alex's car is broken. Logan, give him your car.
Give him your car, exactly.
That's not going to happen moving forward.
No, it won't. And so that's going to be a little bit of a culture shift for Alex Albon.
Yeah.
But also, as soon as you're Williams isn't trying to win a drivers championship. They're trying to increase their status in life in the constructors.
Yeah.
And this is something that I didn't realize until I was listening to the to the F1.com for the race coverage, there's no money for your driver's championship winner. All the money's for the constructor.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting.
So you get bragging rights. Maybe you'll get a lot more sponsorship coming your way. But listen to my my man Will Buxton. Nope. There is zero money for the championship.
Okay.
So as soon as you're a race team, not saying you don't care about the driver championship, a lot of PR, like you obviously, there's probably money from other places.
Oh, sure.
But there's no championship purse.
I did not know
me
that.
Neither.
That's an
Me
interesting
neither.
variable.
Yeah. So now Williams, just to top off Williams, I think if they can get two strong drivers like Alex Albon, and Carlos Sainz, Williams is trying to get into the top 5 teams.
Yeah.
And the best way to do is have the best drivers. So my guess is with Alex Albon, he'd probably be a little happy. Again, love you, Sergeant. You're my countryman. He'd probably be happy to have a teammate that he wasn't always being put in a situation to try and
salvage what's left of the day.
And as soon as every time you turn around, you're like, hey, man, we have a rookie who's not quite working out. We're all relying on you.
Oh, sure.
Like that would get to me. He's like, dude, I'm one driver. I'm just trying to drive. Like, what do you want?
Exactly. No, I'm with you. Those are all really good points. And I think, I think strategically it's a good talking point for Sainz where he's, their approach has been where, we're signed on through the 25-year. The intent of being with Williams is to again outperform your platform and basically use next year as an audition for those higher tier teams. But how often does that work out well? You got Danny Ricciardo in V Carb.
Yeah.
You've got Bottas at Kick Sauber. These guys have Grand Prix wins under their belts, just like Sainz has going into this, and their ability to stand out, their ability to show that they are better than the car they're in, hasn't really come through.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
I don't know.
But again, how do you become a better constructor if you don't have solid drivers?
Exactly.
So it's a chicken or egg thing. Do you wait for the team to be better, or do you wait? Do you wait for the constructor to be better, or do you wait for do you get better drivers to become a better constructor?
And it would be really good if you and I make it to one of the F1 races in the United States here, which we're working on.
Yeah.
We can actually get a microphone in somebody's face. I would be really interested in talking to somebody who's a strategist, or at least the assistant to the aide to a strategist.
Yeah.
And see, because as you're a growing team, I'm thinking your Haas's, your Kick Saubers, your Williams, even though Williams has been around for a while, there has to be some amount of we need a good driver to learn and evolve versus we need a new driver to try and find that talent and have them take us to the next level.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how quite all that plays out, because like as soon as you get like a Max Verstappen or a Max Verstappen, you Lewis Hamilton, stuff like that, your Lando Norris's, your young drivers who come in and there's a rough learning period and then you shine. Well, then when do you open that door to accept that rough learning period, then try and shine? Or when do you stick with the older dog who has a couple Grand Prix wins, who has 50 or 60 races to learn from them before you offload them and get the new driver in to take that knowledge and go?
Yeah.
And I don't know how that is. I don't know if I have my crystal ball, but I think that at the end of 2025, we're going to see a huge. Actually, I could go either way. I was going to say a huge shift in drivers or a huge not shift in drivers.
Oh, just based on the changes.
Based on the changes of the formula.
Yeah.
Because you either want brand new drivers to start just absolutely clean, except you're not going to be competitive for a year or two.
Right.
And get your Liam Lawsons, and that other guy who you mentioned.
Antonelli?
Your Liam Lawsons, your Antonelli.
And then Behrman down on Haas now.
Yeah. Like, are you going to try and get your Haas, your Behrmans, your Antonellis, and your Liam Lawsons into a brand new spec car and have work that entire formula for how many years with those drivers, have that be your goal? Or do you keep your Leclercs, your Oscar Piastris, your Carlos Sainz, pick your Haas driver at this point in there to make that transition, and then see if it's not performing to get the newer driver in? I don't know. That'd be a very interesting question to ask a strategist.
Well, and I think this harkens back to our previous conversation of is the passion all replaced by technicality? No, because we're having this conversation.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
There's still very much any of those three new drivers plus whoever's going to come in. There are still vacant spots. There are still openings at. Because so Haas is all set now because they have it's going to be Ocon and.
They got Ocon.
They got Ocon and now they got Behrman. And so now you've got an open spot at Alpine. We'll see what happens with Perez. We've got an open spot at no, we don't. It's still speculative on Mercedes, but not really.
Yeah.
And then you still have one open spot at Kick Sauber, which is going to be Audi. So it could be completely new faces. Never know if Kevin Magnussen's going to try to find a way to hang around another year or so. But of all these new faces, which one of them may pull a Nick DeVries, where it's like, he had all the reason to be successful, and it didn't work out.
Which, I mean, and from what I understand, like all the buttons and stuff on that, I'm not like dogging Nick DeVries.
Yeah.
But the jump up from Formula 2 to Formula 1 is mind melting.
Sure.
So you can have, like I said, to your point, the greatest driver, I'm just reiterating what you said, the great driver, and it just doesn't quite.
I mean, look at other sports. How many Heisman winners?
Yeah.
How many first round picks have just crashed and burned because that skill jump from college to professional level sports is just too much.
And so is that skill jump from high school to college, and so is that skill jump from pee-wee from high school, from junior high to high school, and that skill jump from pee-wee to junior high, that's where I got cut off.
I was going to say this is hitting a little too close to home. The lower you go, man.
Right?
I didn't. Yeah, my peak wasn't all that high.
So I say I'm sorry, Paul. You were good enough to play 9U soccer, but you just don't have the chops for 10U travel soccer, man.
I definitely had the distinguished award of like most inspirational player.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
He went out there and he gave it his all day in and day out. Was it, did it equate to much? No, but boy, did he try.
Boy, he tried his heart out. When's tryouts? Oh, don't worry about it. You did a great job.
Yeah, I would be destroyed one-on-one against Airbud, man.
Gosh, right?
I wouldn't have a chance.
But it is super interesting speculating. We should have, because we do have a number of weeks before the next race.
Yeah.
So we should absolutely have an episode where we just speculate who's going where.
Yeah.
And one thing I did hear some whispers before we keep on going, is that our countryman Logan Sargent and maybe this has been debunked and I just haven't seen it, might be going to IndyCar.
Interesting.
If he loses his seat.
Okay.
And I was looking into it. So IndyCar is basically a Formula 2 car where Sargent had so much success.
Okay.
Without all the hybrid stuff. So a lot of the electrics, a lot of all of that, electronics, a lot of the electronics and stuff aren't quite there. And IndyCar is basically a smaller, lighter Formula 1, which is basically a Formula 2 car.
Sure.
And the rules are a lot different about how you get into it and how you stay into it and stuff like that. So that'd be pretty sick. I'd have to start watching IndyCar if he goes over to an IndyCar team.
Oh, absolutely. And again, all of these guys, even the most failure prone, were great in other platforms, maybe with the exception of Lance Stroll. But
Lance Stroll. Did you watch the driver interview?
No, what happened?
Oh, I want to see it towards the end.
First of all, where did he start? Where did he end?
Let's do that. So
I don't pay a lot of attention to him.
No, that's fine. That's why you have me. Like, I'm the one who geeks out about this.
Qualified 15th.
Okay, starting grid. Okay,
got up to 11th.
He got 11th.
I mean, he moved up almost in the points.
So basically, there was more than one time in this press conference that he was sitting there on his phone, and somebody asked a question to the group. And the moderator was like, all right, Lance, what do you think? And he was like, wait, I'm sorry, what?
No.
Can you repeat the question? And then he would answer like some sort of answer. And then all the other drivers were talking and he was down there on his phone. He looked like
checked out.
Just checked out. And I don't know. And this would be a big question is him doing that. Is it because he doesn't need to play the game? He knows he's going to have a seat. Or is it that he's going to be going off into the ether and they're actually going to get, they're going to get somebody else to drive that the dad isn't going to keep him around anymore.
Dad's going to keep him around because they already announced earlier in the year. Because, I will say for him, you got Alonso on your team, but he has placed higher than Alonso on a number of the races. They are firmly middle of the pack. They are kind of the benchmark between the elite teams and we are in F1 also.
Yeah.
Teams, But Aston Martin is that green line.
Okay.
And if you look at the point totals, there's about like between 80 and 100 point gap between 5th and 4th place.
Yeah.
And there's a healthy gap between 5th and 6th place.
Gotcha.
So I can't say he has done all that much worse than Alonso.
That's true. So you wouldn't get rid of
cumulatively in the season.
Yeah.
But when they did do the press release where he's like, I am signing on to Aston Martin for another year, and it's like no one was surprised.
No one cared.
So,
no coverage. Just like
I think, we're going to see him next year. But to your point, with him being checked out, yeah, he does not. I mean, his dad owns Aston Martin. He does not need to rely on potential endorsements or any kind of ad revenue beyond his F1 paycheck, which is probably is already insane.
That's a good point. If you're getting, if you're a kid and you're getting, a massive allowance, why would you get a job?
Right. No, like again, if you're rising up from farm country and you make it into the big leagues, and all of a sudden, in addition to your contract, you get signed to all these sports brands. That's incredible. That's a whole new life for you and your family for generations to come. For him, it's
he'll inherit Audi, so not Aston Martin. So yeah,
right, yeah. He already had the silver spoon. He doesn't need to fight for that to have that winning personality to show that I can be a champion for whatever brand wants me to be their spokesperson. There's no push for that there's no incentive for him on that front.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Other than looking kind of like a tool.
And yeah, like what? I still can't believe he did it. I was like, dude, and to me, it makes me think that something's wrong.
I see.
But I don't know if but it can't, what's wrong? You're not going to lose your seat. I don't know. Maybe there's still a lot of stuff going on. I don't know what's going on in his personal life. No.
But again,
Mr. Stroll, I apologize if you have a lot of stuff going on. Sorry, just a really weird time to look at your phone.
And that could be. But, I can kind of see Lewis Hamilton at the end of last year doing that, because he's clearly unhappy with where he is, with where his company is that he has, lived his whole career with.
That's true.
Or it's the same thing as someone sitting out of preseason training, waiting for their contract to get resolved. Yeah. But not for Lance.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. So I think we've hit all the stuff that I was going to talk about. What do we have? Anything we're missing?
I'm sure there was some more middle of the pack drama that we could unpack. But when you have a week like this where there's the disqualification, where there's Lewis Hamilton's unexpected second victory of the year through strange circumstances, where you have Sainz signing with Williams. Mm-hmm. This is what everyone needs to be talking about this week.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And that'll give us time for me to crunch all the stats from this first half of the season. And the next episode we can talk about our teams. Yeah. Because with some of the mix-ups coming along, do I keep, so I'm one of the guys who put Haas as a constructor on thing with this, just because I wanted to double dip in McLaren. Sure. And after this last race, that team's hurting because Haas is back to. It seems like they're still doing well, but the constructor isn't still. Oh no, yeah, it's not being out. And we discussed it last week. I'm like, no, I'm gonna stick with them one more time. And,
and we talked about that being a risk, and we know if something's a risk, that means things can go wrong.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Highly technical sports talk here. Sorry.
If something's good, that means that not bad. Yeah. If it's bad, it means not good.
Whoa.
I know. Oh. All right. So do you have any parting shots or saved rounds?
No, but thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for dealing with our lack of video for the first 18 minutes. And we'll see you next week. Please give us a good rating if you haven't, and spread the word.
Absolutely. Cheers.
All right. Take care.